A dream for you, Zay. When I was very young, I remember having this recurring dream that's always stayed with me, crystallized in my memory. I think because there was a creature in the dream that I don't recall ever seeing before I dreamt it, not in pictures or television, and certainly not in real life. So in the dream, I'm a little girl, and I'm surrounded by pure, endless black. But I'm not scared, just curious. Then I see a light up ahead of me, and I decide to go towards it. I remember that I wasn't walking in the dream. I was just moving towards the light, because I'd made up my mind to do so. As I grew closer, this light began to appear more like a glowing blue orb. And when I got right up next to it, I realized that the light was a window, like a round porthole window on a ship. But when I looked through the window, there was nothing blue on the other side. There was water, though, filling a curved room with no corners. The walls of the room had the appearance of peach pink porcelain. It was like a giant marbled fish tank and a uterus all at once. Only I was too young at the time to know what a uterus was or what one looked like. For several years, I would think of the walls in that room as being like the inside of a conch shell. Floating in the waters, at the center of the uterine fish tank, there was a man. He wasn't floating on his back, but bobbing up and down a bit, with his head and neck above the water and the rest of his body beneath. To this day, I still can't remember any specific features about this man, nor did I ever feel like I knew him. I just knew he was a man, and there was something else in the water with him. Swimming in circles around the man was a great orca. This is the creature I had never seen before I dreamt it. At least, I don't remember ever seeing one before that dream. Years later, I saw one in some kind of Discovery Channel documentary on TV and was immediately drawn to it. I recognized it from the dream. As I watched the black and white mass of muscle, I knew somehow that the orca in my dream was a female, and she's just swimming around and around in a little conch shell with a man in the middle. Then, I'm suddenly very aware of the fact that the tank is awfully small for a creature that size, and this observation is quickly followed up with the realization that the water has begun to drain out of the little pink porcelain enclosure. I look down and see that there's a giant hole in the bottom of the tank, and the tank has become like a funnel now. I'm watching the water level rapidly drop, and as it does, I can feel that the orca is becoming increasingly agitated. Now she's swimming around the man faster and faster. I can also feel the man's fear now. He feels her anger as well. He knows that she attributes the lost waters to him, and now he's terrified. But there's nothing he can do, no place for him to go. They're trapped in there together. Once the water is almost completely drained from the tank, the orca attacks and kills the man, and there's bright red blood everywhere. Now all the water is gone, out through the hole in the bottom, but the hole is too small for the killer whale or the man's corpse to fit through. The dream ends with me just standing there, staring at a dying beached orca and a dead man, both lying in a pool of blood at the bottom of a giant conch shell. What do you make of that, Zay? The glowing blue orb reminds me of the little pup. The dog star's been shining quite brilliantly these days. Looks like her son's been put in a timeout and she's taking a breather. That little blue devil, when will he ever learn? Do you think that maybe I was looking through the window of a star and into another world? Or perhaps into the future? Sometimes I think that the orca might be like a cheetah. She's beautiful and efficient, fierce and deadly, tenacious too, but wise enough to wait for the right moment. She'll get that old grunter eventually. I think it's funny that orcas, despite being in the dolphin family, are called killer whales, and also that the words whale and will have such similar etymological lineages. It's particularly interesting when you consider that the words will and whale are also etymologically connected to women or woman, or to female attributes. I guess that makes orcas the queens of the sea. Did you know that they kill great white sharks sometimes? And the man, he's like a dumb, ugly pig, floating around on an island that's been fashioned from his own fantasy, the delusion that he's untouchable. So dumb, in fact, that he develops weapons which serve no real purpose but only damage his own health in the long run. All it takes is for just one predator to get on that island, and he's done. You go right ahead and trot out all the demon pigs you want, Zay. I'm a farmer's daughter. Gutting pigs is in my blood. But you gotta face the butcher straight. You don't want to end up on his plate, son. Personally, when it comes to appreciating barnyard animals, I've always preferred horses to pigs. Sometimes I feel like a little girl with a horse's body. But these days, I'm feeling more like a very old worm woman, particularly when I get angry with someone. I feel this white dragon rising out of me. I can see it in my mind's eye, mincing the flesh of my enemies with so much tooth and claw. Say Ohelaleho to your friends little Mickey, Michael, Mac the Knife Maxwell, and his donkey guard girlfriend out on Mitchell Road for me. And don't forget to tell Tom Thumb's son that I nearly miss his dead shark eyes staring right through my soul sometimes. His little vampire boy band is almost as sucky as yours was, Zay. Oh, and give my regards to the fam. Your daughter looked like a cute little Nava in that skirt with the flowers falling all around the trim, and a shirt made of all theory. Looks like something you'd see being worn at a Pink Floyd concert. Hope you enjoyed the poem I sent for your last birthday. Here's something new for you. I made it last spring when I first began contemplating what you were up to with your silly Humbert Club. And I guess that this is the ether's answer to my question. The image just created itself right out of me, or through me, I guess. And then here's a photo of my notebook. Anyway, the big 50 is quite a mile marker. It puts you over the hill, old man. Your time's running out, Hosea. Don't break a hip trying to outrun me now. Hecate. So this is a little email, well, a long email, I guess, that I sent to Zay Frank via his, I'm hoping his potato face doesn't pop up. Okay, good. So you can see there, I sent it to that email address. I sent it on March 31st, 2022. So I sent it last March on his birthday, and I'm recounting a dream in this email. This is an actual dream that I had repeatedly, started having as a little girl. And if some of this doesn't make sense to you guys, for example, talking about the orca being like a cheetah and talking about the man being like a pig floating on an island, that's for example, that's referencing he's made videos about cheetahs. He had recently made a video about cheetahs chasing a pig, and about these pigs that have tusks that grow into their own skulls. So that's what I meant by that. You know, they develop weapons that have no real use and just harm themselves in the long run. But then I'm also making references to things. I'm going to make another video where I go over a lot of what this email means, but I mostly just wanted to have a video where I'm just reading it out. But I'm thinking I will make another one where I read through it more carefully and stop as I'm reading through it and explain stuff as I go along. So another thing, for example, would be like, sometimes I feel like a little girl with a horse's body. That's referencing a book written by Fritz Springmeier about Illuminati bloodlines and the kinds of mind games they play with the children that they find themselves in charge of. So the sort of brainwashing tactics and techniques that they use, they involve sitting little 3-4-year-old kids down and having them watch Fantasia, and then cueing them up with certain suggestions and phrases that they say to these kids at key moments in the movie Fantasia. Oh, by the way, did I mention that they pump these kids full of hallucinogenic drugs like LSD while they're sitting them down and having them watch Fantasia and programming them with these suggestions? One of the suggestions that Fritz Springmeier writes about in his book is they say something along the lines of, I feel like a little girl with a horse's body. When the scene in Fantasia comes on that shows those centaurs and the flying horses as well. This is a legit image. This is a picture that I took of my notebook. So this is a little sketch that I actually made back in like 2021. And it did that's sort of how art works. It creates itself as if the artist is more of a vessel. Any artist who's really thought about why they make what they make and so on and so forth will tell you that. That also aligns itself a lot with what Carl Jung believed, I think, that we're more like vessels for gods, I guess, or the archetypes that live within us, something along those lines, and they act through us. So that seems to manifest itself very readily, very noticeably with artists creating art. It does seem to sometimes just come out of a place you're not really sure of, subconscious mind, what have you. It actually started, let me see if I can zoom in, with that headpiece on the top, the rectangle. That was meant to be something else, and then I blocked it out. And from there, it just became this whole image. And the question that had been on my mind a lot at that point was, what are these people doing? I see the trends. I see repeat patterns. I see them doing something. I see them plotting something. I see them using certain symbols and images to communicate something to each other. What are they like? Why are they doing this? What is their ultimate goal? I know, and at that point I was like, I already know that child abuse is involved. What is the big overarching goal? And so I think that this image that came out of me was maybe an answer to that. Other things, for example, like I've mentioned in past videos how magic is the bringing together of two opposites, and how I believe that these people, whatever you want to label them, Illuminati, or they're just a sick bunch of perverts that decided to network with each other and trade children and abuse children, do horrible things to children, make children disappear. And they dabble in things like magic. They are experimenting with these things. And so if magic, and this is true, again, magic is the bringing together of two opposites, man, woman, husband, wife, boy, girl, like hot, cold, wet and dry. This is how life is made, bringing together two opposites. These people manifest that in extremes, and they manifest it sexually. So the bigger the opposites, the more opposite, the farther apart the opposites, the bigger the bang when they're brought together, is the idea behind that. And using the body as a tool to channel energies, like using tantric sex practices. This is what Tantra is about. It's using your body as a tool to channel energies. So they're using that, they're combining that with magic, with magic, and they're making the opposites very extremes. That means like old man and little girl having involved in tantric sex rituals. That's what these people are up to. I promise you this. That's one of the things that they're up to. And I've found too much suggesting this dating all the way back to where the tantric sex practices originate from. Okay, thousands of years ago. They've been doing this for a long time. Or their families have been. Or whatever, whether or not this network has been around for thousands of years, or it just keeps jump-starting itself, kind of like how the Frankist movement did that. Like, I've heard his name pronounced so many different ways. Sabbatai Zevi. Whatever. Zevi. So just look up the Frankist movement. All right? You'll see it had two main guys who were sort of in charge of it. You had Jacob Frank, but the first guy was Zevi. All right? Zevi started his thing up in like the 1600s. Jacob Frank came and renewed it about 100 years later in the 1700s, in the late 1700s. That's what I mean by like maybe it just keeps these practices and ideas are passed down generation to generation, and maybe they have some lulls, but then they keep kick-starting and jumping back, kicking back, and revving up again. But these practices and these ideas of magic and controlling energies, and using our bodies to channel and control energies have been around for a long time, thousands of years. And if you think that if you're not thinking that there are pedophilic men out there who are also into the occult and are into things like trying to channel energies and make magic, but also do it sexually with children, again, you're not thinking enough and you're living in La La Land. There is a significant percentage of the population that are attracted to children, and of those people, there is going to be a percentage that is into occult stuff and weird freaky stuff and tantra and all that. Mix all that together and you get a lot of horrific child abuse. That is going on. And of course you don't see it because they don't want you to see it. You have to actually make yourself look. They're going out of their way to like hold up the camouflage cloak, and so that you'll just keep on walking past and, going to the Starbucks latte that you want. They don't want you to notice what they're doing. You have to make yourself notice, because guess what? Again, these kids can't defend themselves. It's up to adults to give a shit enough that they will forego the Starbucks latte and force themselves to pay attention to what's really important. So, all right, I'm going to stop ranting at you. So that's what I mean by like the Pink Floyd there, the reference to Pink Floyd, because Floyd means gray or gray-haired, like a gray-haired old man. And pink, obviously, little girl, children, youth, vitality. So bringing together of two opposites. And when I refer to his daughter as a little Nava, in Tantra, Nava means 9 or 9 wombs. Nava Yoni is a term in Tantra, and it means 9 worlds or 9 wombs, or also in the glossary, in the back of a book written by Kenneth Grant, who is the leader of the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis. In the glossary in the back of his book, I forget the full title, but it's The Mummy something. Just look up Kenneth Grant and book and mummy. It will come up. Go to the glossary and search Nava Yoni. Y-O-N-E-I, sorry. So Nava, N-A-V-A, Yoni, Y-O-N-I. Nava Yoni. Kenneth Grant's definition for Nava Yoni in the glossary in the back of one of his books is the sexual organs of a young girl. So that's also what it means. doesn't just mean 9 wombs or 9 worlds. Those are the sugar-coated definitions of Nava Yoni. The real hardcore, seedy, underbelly, nasty definition of Nava Yoni is a little girl's coochie. So, again, some people will be doing Tantra and all that, and they're, for the most part, regular, normal people. When they read Nava Yoni, they read 9 worlds. And, oh, it's so spiritual and blah, blah, blah. And then there's this small fraction of the population that are sick people. And they read Nava Yoni as a little girl's coochie. And I've made plenty of references in past videos to the OTO, to Ordo Templi Orientis, how they're connected in all this, how they're called the sunset people, the sunset worshippers, how that relates to Abrasics, the occult symbol, the Gnostic symbol, the Abrasics, how that relates to this cult. Please go watch these videos I am making. I'm trying to make them entertaining for your little guppy minds. I'm sorry, but you need to pay attention. Again, we're talking about the well-being of children. It's not my job to entertain you. It's my job to tell you what's going on, and it's your job to listen and do something about it. Not just go, but I want my latte. Oh, well. Kids want to not be raped. Which do you think is more important? So again, this is your job. This is everyone's job. Everyone's. I'm doing my part. You need to do your part. Do you know a cop? Get a cop involved. Get cops involved that you know. Show them this stuff. Say, hey, doesn't this look kind of suspicious? The things she's pointing out, that kind of adds up to, yeah, it looks like this looks like a pedophile cult. Maybe you guys should be investigating this. Bother the shit out of them. If you know a cop, hey, ladies, are you married to a police officer? You might want to bother the shit out of him until if he really is interested in doing the right thing, which is protecting innocence and so on and so forth. That's the only reason you should be getting into law enforcement. Is if you're interested in protecting innocence and stopping human rights violations and so on and so forth. That's the only reason you should be getting into law enforcement. Too many of you are getting into it because you just want a gun and make me feel powerful. Ladies, here's a way to put your husband to the test. Let's see if he really is a law enforcement officer because he cares about the well-being of children and about human rights, or if he just likes the power of having a gun. It's really all about what does he dedicate his free time to. Is he dedicating it to sitting around watching NASCAR, or whatever, Netflix bullshit? Well, then he doesn't really care about being a cop. He doesn't really want to do the right thing. I dedicate my free time to this. Okay? That's because I really want to do that. I really want to stop people from abusing children in this way. So this is what I dedicate my free time to, and things that I think will help me facilitate, be more effective at that. So if your husband is a cop or FBI or anything like that, or a judge, and he's sitting around on his ass in his free time, you need to get on his ass to start doing something like this. Dedicated investigators, cops, detectives, so on and so forth. They never punch the clock on stuff like this. They are always doing this. When they really care, when they're really dedicated, there's no such thing as I'm leaving the office. I'm not I understand having to set aside family time, but is he sitting around watching TV? Because I don't watch television? What the fuck is that? I don't do that. That's a waste of my time. And that's wasting the time of these poor kids being abused. If they were truly in it to help others, then that's what they'd be doing with their free time. So, I think it's also interesting. One other thing I wanted to point out, talking about this orca in my dream that attacked the man because it blamed the man for the loss of the waters. I think it's also interesting that now this stuff is happening. So let's pull this up. Here we go. Researchers debate why orcas are attacking and sinking boats. So have you guys heard about this? Recently, orcas have been, I'll just turn that off for now, but orcas have been attacking and sinking boats. As far as I recall reading or hearing about orcas, the wild ones don't typically mess with human beings. It's weird that they don't, because they are the apex predators of the oceans, and they could easily kill a human being if they came across one in the ocean. Yet they don't see, there are no, as far as I've ever read or heard, there's no accountings of wild orcas when they had every ability to. There are no accounts of them attacking or harming a human being. There are some accounts of them when they are in captivity attacking human beings, or sometimes it's thought that they were playing, but they just played too rough, and harming human beings, or they are smart enough to understand, I'm being kept as a slave and you're the one keeping me here, so why should I play nice with you, but as for the wild orcas, again, they don't typically mess with human beings. They just don't. We have lots of accountings of them even, helping human beings when there's really no reason for them to do that. So they really should, because they eat their own. I mean, orcas are dolphins, just like the gray bottlenose dolphin. They're dolphins. They're just bigger, the bigger versions of dolphins, and they will eat the smaller ones. They go after gray bottlenose dolphins. So why wouldn't they attack and eat a human being when they see one floating around in the water? But they don't. That's interesting. And yet, from the time I was a little girl, I was having this dream about orcas that I didn't even know existed back when I was this young. And not only that, it's attacking and killing a man in my dream. And suddenly now, like, when all this stuff is starting to happen, I realized what these people are up to, so on and so forth. Within just 2 to 3 years of me campaigning to try to get them to stop and try to get them shut down and exposed, suddenly orcas are attacking boats and sinking them. It's just interesting. All right, I'm going to leave it there. And I will probably be making another video where I'll get into more detail about connections, things I'm referencing in that email. But this is already longer than I wanted it to be. Okay, good night.